Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. So I'm continuing on watching movies from the 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die book, and today I'll be looking at a 1982 classic, Poltergeist. This was written and produced by Steven Spielberg and directed by Tobe Hooper. It starred Jo Beth Williams, Heather O'Rourke, Craig T. Nelson, and Beatrice Straight. The film really follows the Freeling family and how they're just average family living in suburbia. That isn't until strange things start to happen within the house. What begins as a wondrous encounter with the supernatural soon turns horrific as the spooks manifest themselves in increasingly nasty ways. And there's things that happen within the house that the family can't control. And it isn't until the young daughter Carol Ann disappears that the family starts to realize there's something seriously wrong, and they call in parapsychologists and a medium to ultimately retrieve their daughter and try and get rid of this spirit within the house. This is an interesting film. Look, I like this film. I just found it sort of a strange collaboration between Steven Spielberg, who'd been known for whimsical and fun, sort of entertaining movies like E.T. and a variety of others. And he's doing this sort of spooky, horror-ish, sort of supernatural film. And then you've got Tobe Hooper, who's really known from horror films such as Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it just felt like a strange collaboration between these two very different filmmakers. What you can tell from the film is Spielberg was heavily involved. He came up with the story, he wrote the script, he produced it, and was involved in a way that you could really feel on screen because it had that sort of whimsical, fun, entertaining, sort of funny elements. But then you can also see the flares of Tobe Hooper as well. There's some horror moments. There's a character who has this vision of his face falling apart and he starts clawing at it, and it's quite graphic. It looks kind of funny because the prosthetics don't look quite right, but it's entertaining. And there are other moments through that with more of the supernatural horror elements to the film. And especially the third act with all the coffins popping up and things happening, that last scene becomes much more of a horror film towards the end than it did at the beginning of the film. Very entertaining film. I like we're sort of thrown in suburbia. It feels a lot like E.T. in many ways, in looking at this particular family, this strange, unique experience happening for them and how it affects them as a family unit and individually. And how it starts to take its toll on them as the film goes on. Well, the supernatural stuff starts in a sort of a simple, subtle way, where you have Carol Ann ultimately waking like she's in a dream state, coming down the stairs, her father's asleep in front of the TV. The station's gone off and it's got that sort of snowy black and white thing happening. And she begins to talk to the TV, as if someone's talking to her. She's giving answers. And she starts to sort of laugh and smile. Slowly but surely, all the family have gathered around her and they just sort of stare and not quite knowing what's going on. And things just slowly get stranger and stranger. The young boy starts to have fears of this creepy tree that's sort of growing outside of his window, and there's a thunderstorm. And the young girl sort of just accepts things, but she's starting to notice much more than she did before. And there's another scene later on with the TV exactly the same. But then this is when strange things start to happen. Like the chairs start to do weird things in the kitchen, and the mother starts to witness these, and since it thinks it's sort of a game, her and her daughter having this game, and then it slowly twists and turns along the way. I really liked all the acting in it. I thought they were all solid performances. Carol Ann, played by Heather O'Rourke, was solid in this film as a little girl, and she had some good moments, like the classic line, "They're here," and stuff like that, and you can hear her voice through the TV once she disappears. And I kind of like that aspect to it, and I kind of like that she's the one who becomes aware of it, as well as the dog that they have is sort of more sensitive to what's going on. She's an actress that only appeared in a few films and tragically died at a young age due to a misdiagnosed illness. But she really does really well as a little girl in here, and she's not completely in the film, but she's in the important parts. I think Craig T. Nelson is sort of solid as a father. He's a little odd and unique in his performance here. Something doesn't quite seem right, but I like what he's able to bring to this sort of the way he accepts things, the way he witnesses things, the toll that it takes on him and his family, the anger that he expresses throughout the movie is really solid, and I like his chemistry with Jo Beth Williams as well. I like their chemistry together. I think the little boy's fine. He has some moments where it's sort of scary things happening, where he's also almost eaten by a tree, which is a bizarre thing to say if you haven't seen it. But there's just things with him, and I think he's fine sort of being the little, brother, little other child they deal with, and they have an older sister as well. But to me, the real standouts here is Virginia Keyser, who plays the sort of medium that comes in towards the end of the film. She's this little lady with this strong southern accent. And she delivers a classic line, "The house is clean." That's something that that everyone sort of knows, and I kind of like her performance here. She's kind of a unique and refreshing sort of actress who gives a great performance, who really understands what's going on and really tries to help the family in a really great range. She has a really great moments. I think Beatrice Straight's really good playing Dr. Lesh. She's this parapsychologist who has a great moment in the film where they've come to her for assistance, and she thinks it's people just, there might be weird noises or sounds or whatever, and she's trying to debunk it or whatever, and she goes in. And there's a moment when they go up to the room that everything is transpired. They open the door and there's things flying around, the lights are flicking on and off, and her reaction is fantastic. Like, she knew this stuff existed, but she'd never seen it, and it takes her by surprise. And she's really good, and she explains things, that she was a psychologist and this was something she got into. And she talks about the living and the dead, and gives a great sort of understanding and idea of what's actually transpiring, and where she thinks people who die go and the ghosts stay. Far my favourite performance and character is Jo Beth Williams' Diane Freeling. She's so great in this. She has some really great moments. She's funny. The way she accepts things that are happening within the house and to her family, but be strong when she needs to, and really wants to get her daughter back, and the lengths that she goes to achieve that. I really like that. I think she's fascinating to watch. She has a good moment. She becomes sort of like the heroine, the hero of the piece, especially in the third act of the film. And she just gives a really great performance. And you really believe her, and you're really sucked in by her, and you really want her to get her daughter back. And she's the heart and soul in many ways of the family unit, which I really loved. What I like too is there's a lot of practical visual effects in this film. Some of them are a little dated, like the guy clawing at his face, and some of the visual effects of things moving and stuff like that. But there's a practicality to it. There are some digital effects in it, some early digital effects that don't quite hold up, but they still serve a purpose for these particular scenes. And I just like the creation of the ghosts when we see them and what they look like, and when the coffins pop up at the end with the skeletons popping out of them is really great. The design of the tree that's trying to eat the kid, the creepy clown that sits in the chair at the end of his bed that has some really creepy moments within the film. Just some really creepy things that happen. And there's a scene where Jo Beth Williams' character goes up upon the roof, and it's sort of like they're twisting the house, so they did in Nightmare on Elm Street, which I really liked. And these elements of that where they tilt things and beds and bits and pieces out of the kids' room, go into the closet, and they fall into there, and she disappears into there as well. And I really like the twist in the end of why it's all happening. The fact that these developers moved the graveyard, but they left the bodies there, with the things causing havoc within this small suburban sort of community that's just newly being built. And all the houses look the same, and it starts to have an effect on everybody in there. There's this really sort of odd humour in the film that feels a lot like Spielberg, a lot like what Spielberg would create and the humour he would use. And at times it adds a little bit to the film, but I think most of it takes away from the film. It just really feels like there was two different forces at work here. You had Spielberg, who wanted to make it a bit more lighter, and then you had Tobe Hooper, who wanted to do it the sort of more horror way that he usually does. And you can see that the tones sort of clash a bit. But it's an effective film. It sucks you in. It's an interesting ride. There's fun characters. The visual effects are solid. You really feel for this family. My favourite aspects of movies like this is the parapsychologists. I like these characters who they start to talk about these strange things they think are ghosts or whatever happening, and then when they're presented with it, when they see it, it just sort of takes them by surprise, and I really loved that to it. I thought that was fantastic. I was just really entertained by this film. It's solid. It's a very well orchestrated film that's solidly written, interesting characters, and there's quite a lot of supernatural stuff that's quite effective within the film. But like I said, there's just the tone that clashes a little bit, and I just feel that if Spielberg loosened the reins a little bit and let Tobe Hooper do what he does, it could have turned into a much more creepier horror film than it actually was. Anyway, that's all for me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit subscribe down the bottom, follow me on Facebook, and otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.